My name is Gary Wheeler, and you are entering the zone of high strangeness. This is my new show that takes a look into the UFO phenomena and other paranormal experiences. I hope this show will be a dialogue with you, the listener, sharing your experiences and questions with me. I'll be presenting information on the UFO topic and share some words by the experts in the field. There is a huge subculture made up of scientists, professionals, pilots, high-ranking retired military officials, astronauts, and everyday folk like you and me who are dealing with the greatest event in human history, the interaction with extraterrestrial beings from places other than Earth. Could be other planets, other dimensions, or both, or maybe time travelers. This show is open to all subjects that stretch our brains and take us out of our comfort zone. I'm here to share information and have fun. I will tell you a little bit about myself. I'm 70 years old. I've been in Maine for the last 13 years. Previous to that, I lived in San Francisco for about 27 years, part of which I lived on a beautiful old wooden sailboat. I was trained as a psychologist and worked in school psychology for a short time because I had a difficult time with the bureaucracy. I was fortunate enough to be director of an alternative school for a couple of years for kids that I called socially malignant because their parents basically didn't want them around. That was a great experience. And I had always been a carpenter. Ever since I was a kid, I worked for carpenters, and so that proved a skill that I could transfer almost anywhere, which I did over time. And eventually I worked on boats, and I became a boatwright, working on wooden boats. And during that period, I had an idea about a product to climb the mast on a sailboat, which turned into a product called the Mastmate, which has been used extensively over the years and has provided me with some income over the years. Also here in Maine, I worked on the sex abuse hotline out of Augusta and dealt with people that experienced sexual trauma. I especially worked with men in the jails around their childhood sex abuse issues. And then about 7 years ago, through some experiences, I started looking into the UFO matter and researched it extensively. And oddly enough, last year, serendipitously, Joe Steinberger started the Old School, which gave me the opportunity to offer a course on the UFO phenomena, and a course which turned out to be fairly successful. Quite a few people showed up, and they kept coming over 8 different classes. The first class we did had to do with history of the UFOs, showed a video called Fast Walkers, which is a very good introduction to the UFO phenomenon. The second class, we dealt with testimonials that were given at the Citizens Disclosure hearing in Washington, D.C. last May in 2013, which was basically a situation where they set up a hearing, like a congressional hearing, with 6 retired congressmen that listened to testimonials from UFO experiencers, and this went on for 5 days with some incredible testimony. The third session of the class, we dealt with abduction. We talked about John Mack, who's a psychiatrist from Harvard that wrote the book Abduction and also produced a movie called Touched, which is about a woman who had been abducted. The fourth session, we dealt with crop circles, which in my mind is the smoking gun proof of the existence of the ETs as well as the UFOs. Next session, we dealt with Stephen Greer's new movie called Cirrus, which is the most recent movie on UFOs and alternative energy, actually, as well. And the next session, we dealt with NASA and their tendency to cover up any information that they have about UFOs, and they blank out any video that they've gotten from all the stuff that's taken from the space station and the other devices that go up, and they have a closed mouth agreement with the with the astronauts that they're not allowed to speak about this issue, although several have after they retired. The next session we dealt with implants, which is a process by which the ETs are putting little very small devices in the human bodies. For what purpose, we're not sure. And the last session was on hybrids, which is a concern that the ETs are using our genetics and our DNA to develop hybrid beings. Also, we talked about indigo children, which are the children over the last couple generations that seem to have qualities different than their forebears in the sense that they have great insight. Their intelligence process seems to work on a different level than ours. Unfortunately, because of their differences, often they're pathologized and given a lot of drugs, so they have a very difficult time. But it seems as though this is a indication of a coming change in the human being that, as you can imagine, is well needed. And I am not Paul Revere that's going to go yelling through the streets that UFOs are coming, and that's partly because they're already here. And basically, I start with the knowledge that they are real and their occupants are here, and not only doing a survey of the planet and its occupants, but also communicating in various ways that we, the human race, have to get our act together, stop killing each other, and find a sustainable way to live and to care for the planet. So why do I name the show High Strangeness? Well, High Strangeness is a term that's used in ufology, and it's defined as a term for experiences outside the normal range of our accepted physical laws, such as speed, maneuvers, disappearing, shape-shifting, telepathy, all those things that kind of fit into the paranormal. Although with High Strangeness, there is an oddity that takes place that's a little bit beyond all those others. I'll give you an example. Suppose one night you're driving across the Brooklyn Bridge and it's about 2 o'clock in the morning, and up ahead you notice one of the tall buildings, and something's odd because you see a disc that's approaching the top of that building, and all of a sudden the motor in your vehicle shuts off, your lights shut down, and you notice that all the vehicles around you, there's about 5 or 6 other vehicles, their lights go off and their motors shut down as well. And as you're watching, what you see is almost impossible to believe. This saucer-shaped vehicle goes over the top of the building and hovers there and puts a beam of light down on the top of the building. And within that beam of light, all of a sudden appear 4 figures that are drawn up inside the saucer. The one of the beings that's drawn up is definitely a human being, a woman with a kind of a nightgown on. The other 3 are definitely not human. They are drawn up into this saucer, and the full visibility of all the people on the bridge watching this take place. And then the light goes off, and the saucer quickly reverses direction and actually goes into the river and disappears under the water. Now, that would be called High Strangeness. In actuality, that is an incident that really occurred. There were lots of witnesses to this. And actually, a man by the name of Bud Hopkins wrote a book called Witnessed, which is about this particular happening. So High Strangeness is a particular kind of strangeness. It is the type that takes us out beyond ourselves, beyond our comfort zone, and challenges us to face things that normally we would rather not face because they challenge our sense of safety, our sense of who we are on this planet, and open up a whole chasm of possibilities about the history on our planet and who we are as individuals and what our future is all about. Our reality is full of coincidences, serendipity, our dreams, our flying dreams at night, what they call astral projection, remote viewing, religious epiphanies, the seeing of ghosts. All these things exist in a plane that we're not used to dealing with. And this is kind of the area that I'm most focused on because I think it's interwoven with the whole UFO phenomenon. And through the various types of physics now and quantum physics, we're beginning to understand that there are a myriad of possibilities as far as multiple dimensions in which different things can be occurring all at the same time. And it is feasible that beings can be in these other dimensions and cross over occasionally into our dimension and have an effect on our lives. And so we're opening the possibility, even in our science, that the existence of these UFOs and the ETs is much more possible than what we would have thought maybe 30, 40 years ago. There are also many strange things occurring right at this moment. As I sit here, or you sit in your car, or at home in a chair or on the couch, the realization that we are moving at a fantastic speed at all times. The Earth is spinning at 1,000 miles an hour. The Earth's circumference is 24,000 miles, and that's why we have a 24-hour day, because the Earth is spinning at 1,000 mile per hour rate, which means we're moving at that speed. Also, to add to that, the Earth is going around the sun in its orbit at 67,000 miles an hour. So again, we're speeding even faster. And on top of that, the solar system around our galaxy is traveling at almost 500,000 miles an hour. And to put on top of that, the galaxy itself is tunneling through space at probably well over 1.3 million miles per hour. All this amounts to is we're sitting here, I'm sitting here, you're sitting at home, and we're literally moving approximately at 2 million miles an hour. 2 million miles an hour, and we don't feel a thing. And in a sense, that is very much high strangeness. Also, most of you know, but we don't think about it very often, when we look up at the stars, we're actually not seeing the stars, we're seeing light that's come from those stars at the speed of light of 186,000 per second, that from years and years ago. So some of those distances in millions of miles, they're light year miles. So we're literally seeing, what we're seeing is a couple million years old. So in some ways, we could be seeing the light from a star that doesn't even exist. So in a sense, we're seeing the past in the present. Also, just another fact that we don't think about much, the light from the sun actually takes 8 minutes to get to the Earth. And of course, those are light minutes, which means 186,000 miles per second. So much of this information, in a sense, even though it's there and we've been told it in school and stuff, and when we kind of look at it and look at the other phenomena around us, we're kind of challenged to think beyond the boundaries of kind of the box we live in. You know, we only, as humans, we only really have 5 senses that really interpret the outside, what we call reality, into our brains, which puts that, our brains put it in some form of images that we can understand what surrounds us in the way that we interpret it. Of course, other animals interpret it much differently because they have different senses. So we're extremely limited about the reality that we actually experience. Much of reality is based on frequencies, and the frequencies of the electromagnetic scale are vast and almost infinite. So that the actual spectrum with which we operate, that we perceive, is just minuscule compared to the vastness of the frequencies that do exist. So it takes a bit of effort to move outside of our box and open ourselves to the possibilities of other things happening that don't fit within that boundary that we've set up for ourselves. And it's risky because that boundary has a lot to do with feeling safe. So we want to know that certain things are true so that we can feel safe in the way that we function. And if we challenge that too much, we get fearful that we're not safe anymore. So you have to find your own limits to what you can take and what you can't take. And honestly, if you get on the internet and look at UFO information, you'll get discouraged pretty quick, because there are some very, very far out websites around the whole UFO and ET phenomena. And some of it can just go beyond what you're capable of dealing with or understanding. And many people who start to look at it just sort of close the website and say, I've had enough of that. So it's the end of it. So in part, I'm here to try to clarify all that for you over time. Now, on other shows coming up, I will basically start the show with information of the last week or two of what's been observed in the UFO community and what's kind of happening. There's a couple sources for that. MUFON, which is the Mutual UFO Network, is a good source for recent sightings that have taken place. They have a really good website at MUFON.com where you can go and actually look at maps of the United States and see where the most recent sightings were. And if you have seen something yourself, you can actually go there and list what you've seen so that you can get some reaction from other people that may have seen the same thing. There's also an organization called the National UFO Center, which again has recent sightings that have taken place. The frequency of UFO sightings is quite incredible. I've noticed myself when I've mentioned to people either that I was doing that course previously or that I was doing the show, invariably one out of, I would say, maybe 5 or even less, tell me a story about something that happened to them concerning the whole UFO thing, from seeing a UFO, what they thought was a UFO, to actually abduction experiences that most of these people have never talked to anybody about before, mainly because when you talk about it, you set yourself up for ridicule. And the mass media in this country and the politics of this country is such that the UFO matter is not to be dealt with. This is not true in other countries. Many countries have kind of an open policy about the whole issue, and if there are sightings, they'll actually publish them in the paper, and they'll talk about them in the sense that it is a reality. I think in one country, I think it's Bolivia, they actually teach about UFOs in their schools. So, I mean, not all other nations are as closed to this as we are. And you can imagine sort of why we're closed, because of how do you explain it to your population that there's these other beings zipping around that have these tremendous capabilities, and how is our government can convince us that they can keep us safe when this technology that the others have is so advanced that we would never have any issue with a confrontation about succeeding in dealing with them. So it's understandable why it's kept quiet, but the way the media handles it is really discouraging, because there are a lot of events that occur that are of great importance. Now, usually I would be taking phone calls, but tonight I'm still learning how that system works. So I'm not going to do it tonight, but hopefully I'll start next week in taking phone calls and getting some reactions from you out there about maybe some of your own experiences. And I would also invite people who don't believe in this or are contrary about the whole concept of UFOs and the whole idea of other beings actually being in contact with people here on Earth, and how you feel about it. I'd be interested in hearing all points of view on this. Or if you've had other kinds of paranormal experiences, I invite you to let me know about those as well. So for the rest of the show, I'm going to replay some of the interview that I had that was with Johnny Cosno on his show called Open Book. This took place about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, in which he interviewed me about UFOs. It's a very good interview. I would like to take a second and remind you that you're listening to WRFR 93.3 in Rockland and 99.3 in Camden. I'd also like to say thanks to my sponsors, one being Eric Best. He's an author and a business consultant, and also thank Leanne and Brian Fuller, who are landscapers. Thank you for your support.